I want to talk to you today about why I think jealousy is not a good thing to have. And it was brought to mind basically when I was watching the FA Cup final last weekend. Because when I was growing up, the thing that was most important about the FA Cup to me wasn't the final, but the third round. Because in the third round of the FA Cup, the big teams came in and they had the chance to play the small teams, and the small teams always had the chance to pull off a giant killing. I can remember back in the 1971-72 season when Ronnie Radford scored a goal for Hereford and they beat top flight Newcastle at the time. It was wonderful.
Radford. Now Tudor's gone down for Newcastle. Radford again. Oh, what a goal! What a goal! Radford the scorer!
And I can also remember wanting Yeovil on their slow-hewn pitch to beat Arsenal. It didn't happen, but it was always something I looked forward to seeing if it could. You see, we love to see an underdog win. There is nothing like it, is there? And if you think about it, can you remember when someone new bursts onto the scene, someone young, and the newspapers pick up on it and media picks up on it and they build that person right up and it gets better and better and things keep going until they get to the top. And then when they get to the top, what often happens is they start to make a few mistakes. Fame starts to take over and they start to believe a lot of the hype that's talked about. And then they start to make mistakes. And it's when they start to make mistakes, newspapers then, the same ones that had been building them up, like to pull them back down. It's like they want to put them back in their place, if you like. And closer to home, aren't we the same? How often is it we see someone getting on and then we start to backbite and talk about them behind their back? It reminds me, to be honest, of that example of when you put crabs into a little bucket and they're all at the bottom, and as soon as one tries to climb up and get out, the other ones get hold of it and pull it back down to where they were. And it seems so like real life. My dad used to say to me that people like to see you move on as long as it's not in front of them. And that seems so true. My parents were never envious, and they always taught us to look at people who were moving on and to think how good it could be that if they can move on, you can too. It's a bit like when waves come into a harbour, and as the sea rises and the tide comes in, it raises all ships. And it does that for us as well. The opportunities are always there. It really just depends on whether you're aware of them or not. You see, jealousy and being envious doesn't affect those people. You talking about them behind their back doesn't make any difference because they're moving on. They've got their goals, they're focused, and they're moving forward. And what it just does is shows the jealous person's inadequacies, if you like. And what you find is that jealous people are jealous for two reasons. First of all, they turn around and they'll say it's all right for them, they're just lucky. But secondly, what often happens is that they know they're not really doing quite enough. And what happens is, rather than admit that, they'll snipe at another person. And what happens quite often is that the person who does the sniping is already better off than the person they're sniping about. And the reason for that is that the person who's doing the sniping is worried that they're about to be overtaken. You see, what happens is when you are not well off financially, it's easier to take a risk because you haven't got so much to lose. And if you're financially well off, it could be the fear of losing everything. Because if you're not so well off, you're used to doing without. But if you're financially well off, it's the fear of not being able to do without that worries you. Jealousy is an insidious thing. It eats away at you on the inside. But what it also does is when you're sniping about other people, people can see it in you. And those that aren't of a jealous disposition are more likely to pull away from you and not want anything to do with you, because they'll be aware that if you'll talk about someone behind their back, you're more than likely going to do it to them as well. My parents used to say to me when I was young that you become like the people you associate with. And that's so true, isn't it? Because if you fall in with the wrong gang, then sooner or later you're going to end up doing what the wrong gang does. We become like the people we associate with, and that's the major problem. And that's why people will not want to be around jealous people. Fortunately, I've never been jealous of anyone. I love to see people moving on, because to me, if they can move on, then I've got an opportunity to move on as well. After all, we all love a David and Goliath story, don't we? Especially when it's someone we know. And that's probably why I like Americans and Australians, because they seem to love an achiever. And I'm all for a bit of that rah-rah and going forward. It makes life much better. But here's the thing. You don't have to wait for the third round of the Cup to come round to look for a giant killing. Have a look around you, because with the right mindset, you'll be able to spot those people that are moving on and you can see what they're doing. And that's not a bad thing. Don't talk about them behind their backs. Be a cheerleader. For starters, it'll make you feel better. And the bonus is that people will see that you're a nice person too. If you've got any comments to make, please make them down below, as always. And if you click up there, I'll tell you why you should look for the positive. I'll see you next time.